welcome back to Niven's Baking Review. Today we're making something a little different. Today we're making focaccia bread from the Bread Baking for Beginners book. And we're also making roasted butternut squash soup by my mom. We're going to start with the focaccia bread using a no-knead dough recipe. We're going to start with 8 grams of instant yeast, 10 grams of salt, 500 grams of all-purpose flour, 375 grams of water at 80 degrees. This depends on the room temperature. Oil for greasing the pan. The recipe calls for kosher salt to season and sprinkle over top, but we are using pink Himalayan sea salt. Roughly 7 grams of rosemary and thyme. Now we're going to pour the yeast into the water. Now we have to swish it with our hands and then let it sit for a few minutes. Feels weird. Now we are gonna pour our flour into our water and yeast mixture and then sprinkle the salt on top. And we can't let the salt touch the water and yeast yet. Now we are going to mix it with our hands until it all comes together. Make sure you scrape the sides of the bowl to get it all combined. Now we're going to let it set so the water can absorb the flour for 20 minutes. Now that we're waiting for our dough to rest, for the butternut squash, we're gonna set our oven to 425 Fahrenheit. We're gonna have our squash put on a lined baking sheet and brush with olive oil and sprinkle with salt. Now we're going to put it in the oven and cook till tender. Now we have to get our dough and put it onto a lightly floured surface and fold it. Now we have to fold it, but to make it easier, for you, this is going to be 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. We're going to want to fold 6 to 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We need to do that about 3 times, and I'm on my 3rd time right now. Now we're gonna put our bread dough into a bowl and cover with a damp towel for about an hour and a half. It's been about an hour, so I'm gonna poke the squash with a fork to see if it's tender. It's tender, and I'm gonna get my mom to pull it out for me because it's hot. Just need that scissor. Let it cool for a while until it's time for the next step for the bread. Now we're going to check our bread, and it should have almost doubled in size after the hour and a half. Now we're going to oil a parchment paper lined pan. The recipe calls for a 16 by 24, but we only have a 15 by 21. And you have to brush all the oil over. Now we're going to take our dough and put it on our oil-lined paper, and then we're going to stretch it out. Now that it's all stretched out, fill it with the rest of the olive oil and poke your fingers in it some more. Now we're going to get our rosemary and thyme and sprinkle it all over our bread. sprinkle the pink Himalayan sea salt on top. Now we're gonna let the dough rest while we preheat our oven. Now we're gonna put the dish of water on our very bottom rack of the oven and then put our second rack in the middle. And set our oven to 475. This is a lot of multitasking, but while our oven's preheating, we're gonna scoop our squash out of its shell. My mom helped me with this because it was a little bit hard, but once all of the squash is out, being careful not to get any peel, you want to put it in. Now we have our squash peel, we're going to mash it up with a potato masher. For the soup ingredients, we're going to need our mashed butternut squash, about 1 teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of minced garlic, 1 cup of 5% cream, 1/8 of a teaspoon ground nutmeg and black pepper for taste, and 1 box of chicken broth and 2 tablespoons of butter, and 1 cup of onion. Now we're going to put our focaccia in the oven and steam it. Now we're going to leave it in there for 10 minutes. Now over medium heat in our soup pot, we're going to add our butter, onion, and salt and saute. Whoa. Now that our onions have started to brown, we're going to add our minced garlic and our spices. And mix or saute. Everything's so nicely brown. We're gonna add our broth, milk, cream, and sweet. Now we're gonna add our cream and mix. Now we're gonna open our oven, take the water dish out, and let the steam come out, and then we're gonna close the oven, let the focaccia cook for another 10 to 15 minutes. Over medium heat, we're going to take a submergent blender and mix it up. Now that our soup is smooth, we're going to let it heat up over medium-low heat until it's hot. To give it a stir so it doesn't bubble up. It's been 10 minutes and our focaccia is ready. Good. Now you let it cool for 20 minutes before cutting into squares. Now that our focaccia is ready and cut into squares, we're gonna have it with our soup. Time to taste test. Let's try the soup first. That's good. I rate the soup a 9 out of 10, but I rate the bread 10 out of 10.